Michael Chen signed the contract on a Tuesday morning in April. The pen was a gift from his father. The office smelled like new carpet and optimism. He read every page. He understood every clause. He asked questions. He got answers. Nothing about that moment suggested he was making a catastrophic mistake. This is not a story about fraud. No one lied to Michael. No one forged documents or embezzled funds. No criminal charges were ever filed. No laws were broken. And yet, within 18 months, Michael would lose his home, his savings, his reputation, and his ability to work in the only industry he'd ever known. What happened to Michael Chen is not rare. It's not even unusual. It's a feature of a system designed with such elegant precision that most people never see it coming until the door has already closed behind them. And if you work for someone else, if you've ever signed an employment agreement, if you've ever believed that doing everything right would be enough, you need to understand how this works. Before we continue, I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel if stories like this matter to you, and leave a comment telling me what country you're watching from. Because what happened to Michael is legal in 47 US states and dozens of countries worldwide. I want to know where you are. I want to know if this could happen to you too. Michael was 34 when he joined Vertex Solutions. He had a master's degree in software engineering from Georgia Tech. 7 years of experience. 3 companies on his resume, each larger than the last. He was methodical, careful, the kind of employee who read the employee handbook. Vertex Solutions was a mid-sized SaaS company based in Austin, Texas. They provided supply chain analytics software to manufacturing companies. Not exciting, not glamorous, but stable, profitable, the kind of company where people stayed for a decade. Michael's role was senior back-end engineer. His salary was $138,000. Stock options vested over 4 years. Health insurance started immediately. He would lead a team of 4. He would report to the VP of engineering. He would build systems that handled millions of transactions daily. The contract was 47 pages long. Michael read it twice, once alone at home, once with his wife, Jennifer, who worked in corporate HR at a different company. She told him it looked standard. She told him the non-compete clause was reasonable, 12 months. His specific role, his specific industry. At the time, this seemed reasonable. Non-compete agreements are common in technology. They exist to protect trade secrets, client relationships, proprietary methods. The logic is simple. If you spend years learning how a company operates, you shouldn't be able to take that knowledge directly to a competitor the next day. Most professionals understand this. Most professionals accept this. Michael signed. For 14 months, everything worked exactly as promised. Michael's team shipped features on schedule. Customer retention improved. The VP of engineering praised his work in quarterly reviews. Michael received a performance bonus in December. $4,000 after taxes. He and Jennifer used it to replace their aging HVAC system. His daughter Emma turned 6. They celebrated at a pizza restaurant with arcade games. Michael's stock options vested incrementally. He checked the company valuation every few months. On paper, he was accumulating wealth. On paper, his future looked secure. What Michael didn't know was that Vertex Solutions was being quietly positioned for acquisition. The executive team had hired a mergers and acquisitions consultant in March. They'd signed an NDA with 3 potential buyers by June. None of this information reached the engineering floor. This is legal. This is normal. In July, the VP of engineering left the company. No exit interview, no farewell email, just a Monday morning announcement that he'd decided to pursue other opportunities. Michael was asked to take on additional responsibilities. No additional pay. Just an acknowledgement that he was being considered for promotion. At the time, this seemed like opportunity. Michael worked longer hours. He managed 6 people now instead of 4. He attended executive strategy meetings. He had access to financial projections, client contracts, product roadmaps. He saw the full architecture of how Vertex operated. He learned the names of every major client. He understood their pain points, their budgets, their decision-making cycles. He was becoming valuable, irreplaceable even. In September, the acquisition was announced. A private equity firm based in Boston was purchasing Vertex Solutions for $212 million. The press release called it a strategic alignment. Employees were told their jobs were safe. Stock options would be converted. The culture would remain intact. Michael was relieved. He'd heard horror stories about acquisitions, mass layoffs, benefit cuts, entire departments eliminated. But the new owners seemed committed. They hosted an all-hands meeting. They used words like investment and growth and continuity. What they didn't say was that they'd already identified which employees were essential and which were expendable. Michael was on a list, but not the list he thought. The new owners had a standard playbook. Step 1, identify employees with the most institutional knowledge. Step 2, extract that knowledge. Step 3, restructure. Michael spent October and November documenting everything: system architectures, client integration processes, database schemas, deployment procedures. He was told this was for knowledge transfer and operational continuity. He was told it demonstrated his leadership potential. He was creating his own replacement manual. In December, 3 months after the acquisition closed, Michael was called into a conference room. The new director of engineering was there. So was someone from HR he'd never met. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. Vertex Solutions was restructuring to eliminate redundancies. Michael's position was being consolidated with another role. His last day would be December 31st. He would receive 2 weeks of severance pay. His health insurance would continue through the end of January. His stock options, which were 70% unvested, would be forfeited. Michael asked why. The director said it was a business decision. Michael asked if his performance was inadequate. The HR representative said this was not performance-related. Michael asked if there was anything he could have done differently. No one answered that question. He cleaned out his desk on a Thursday afternoon. His daughter's drawings were still taped to his monitor. His coffee mug still had yesterday's stains. He carried everything to his car in 2 boxes. The security badge he'd worn every day for 14 months was deactivated before he reached the parking lot. Michael had worked in software engineering for 8 years. He knew the industry. He had relationships. He had a track record. He assumed he'd find something new within a month, maybe 2. He was wrong. This is where the non-compete clause came back. When Michael signed his contract with Vertex Solutions, he'd agreed not to work for any competing business for 12 months after his employment ended. The definition of competing business was broad. It included any company that provided supply chain software, analytics platforms, or related SaaS solutions. In January, Michael applied to 6 companies. All of them worked in logistics technology. All of them offered roles similar to what he'd done at Vertex. 2 of them called him for interviews. Both conversations ended the same way. We'd love to hire you, but we can't risk the legal exposure. Non-compete agreements are enforceable in Texas. If Michael violated his agreement, Vertex could sue him. They could sue his new employer. They could seek an injunction to stop him from working. They could pursue damages. Even if Vertex ultimately lost in court, the legal fees alone would cost tens of thousands of dollars. No company wants that risk, especially not for a mid-level engineer, especially not when there are other qualified candidates without legal complications. Michael tried a different approach. He applied to companies outside logistics, e-commerce platforms, fintech startups, healthcare SaaS. But his resume showed 8 years of specialized experience in supply chain software. Hiring managers asked why he wanted to change industries. Michael explained the non-compete situation. They stopped returning his calls. By February, Michael had applied to 43 positions. He'd received 3 interviews, 0 offers. His severance pay was gone. His savings account, which had once held $18,000, was down to $11,000. Mortgage payments were due. The HVAC system they just replaced started making noise again. Jennifer was working full-time, but her salary alone wasn't enough. They'd built their budget around 2 incomes. They'd assumed stability. They'd assumed Michael's employability. At the time, this seemed temporary. Michael contacted an employment attorney in March. The consultation cost $300. The attorney reviewed his non-compete agreement. He explained that Texas courts generally enforce these clauses if they're reasonable in scope and duration. 12 months, specific industry, specific role. It's enforceable, the attorney said. You could fight it, but litigation would cost $50,000 to $80,000, and there's no guarantee you'd win. Michael asked what his options were. The attorney laid them out. Option 1. Wait out the 12 months. Don't work in your industry. Find something else. Survive. Option 2. Challenge the non-compete in court. Spend years in litigation. Hope a judge agrees the clause is overly broad. Risk losing everything. Option 3. Relocate to a state where non-competes are unenforceable, like California. Uproot your family. Start over. None of these options involve justice. None of these options acknowledged that Michael had done nothing wrong. He'd been a good employee. He'd followed every rule. He'd been fired for reasons beyond his control. And now he was being punished for expertise he'd spent a decade building. This is how the system works. Michael tried freelancing. He set up a website. He offered consulting services for general back-end development. He avoided any mention of supply chain software. He bid on projects through Upwork and Freelancer. He landed 2 small contracts. One paid $1,100 for 3 weeks of work. The other paid $800. Neither led to ongoing work. Clients wanted specialists. They wanted someone who'd solved their exact problem before. Michael's experience was too specific to hide and too restricted to advertise. By April, his savings were gone. He borrowed $6,000 from his father. He didn't explain why. He said it was temporary. He said he'd pay it back by summer. Jennifer started working overtime. She picked up weekend shifts. She stopped buying new clothes. They stopped eating out. They canceled their streaming subscriptions. They explained to Emma why they couldn't go to the arcade anymore. Michael applied for jobs outside technology, retail management, operations coordinator, project manager at a construction firm. He was overqualified for all of them. Hiring managers saw his resume and asked why a senior software engineer wanted to manage a warehouse. He had no good answer. In May, they missed their first mortgage payment. The bank sent a polite letter. They had a grace period. They had options. But the options all involved money they didn't have. Michael's non-compete agreement would expire on December 31st. 9 months away. He just had to survive 9 more months. At the time, this seemed possible. In June, Michael found a job. Not in technology, not in his field, but something. Assistant manager at a logistics warehouse. $38,000 a year. No stock options, no career trajectory, just a paycheck. The warehouse was 40 minutes from his house. He left at 6 in the morning. He came home at 7 at night. He spent his days managing shipping schedules and inventory counts. He worked with people who'd never been to college. He didn't tell them what he used to do. Jennifer asked him how long he planned to do this. He said until the non-compete expired. Then he'd go back to software engineering. Then things would return to normal. But things were already different. The technology industry moves quickly. Michael had been out of active development for 6 months. The frameworks he'd specialized in were being replaced. The tools he'd mastered were obsolete. His LinkedIn profile showed a gap. His network had moved on. When December finally arrived, Michael started applying again. He updated his resume. He reached out to old colleagues. He applied to the same companies that had rejected him 11 months earlier. The responses were different this time, not because of the non-compete that had expired, but because of the gap, because of the warehouse job, because software engineering is a field that doesn't forgive interruption. Hiring managers asked what he'd been doing for the past year. Michael explained the situation, the acquisition, the layoff, the non-compete. He thought honesty would demonstrate integrity. Instead, it demonstrated risk. Companies don't want to hire someone who's been in legal limbo. They don't want someone whose last employer forced them out of the industry. They see gaps and they see problems. They see explanations and they see excuses. Michael applied to 62 positions between January and March. He received 8 interviews. He made it to final rounds twice. Both times he was passed over for candidates with more recent experience. His father's $6,000 loan was never repaid. His credit score dropped. His mortgage went into forbearance. The bank sent letters that were no longer polite. In April, 15 months after the non-compete expired, Michael got an offer. Not in Austin, in Denver. A smaller company, a junior role, $78,000, 40% less than what he'd made at Vertex Solutions. He took it. Jennifer stayed in Austin with Emma. They couldn't sell the house. They owed more than it was worth. Jennifer couldn't leave her job. Michael rented a basement apartment in Denver. He flew home once a month. He video called his daughter every night. At the time, this seemed like the beginning of recovery. But Michael had lost more than money. He'd lost years of career momentum. He'd lost professional confidence. He'd lost the assumption that competence and compliance were enough. He'd learned that systems don't need villains to destroy lives. They just need clauses. They just need policies. They just need ordinary procedures executed exactly as designed. Michael's story is not unusual. A study published in the Journal of Law and Economics found that nearly 20% of American workers are bound by non-compete agreements. That's 30 million people. Most of them don't realize the implications until it's too late. Non-competes are rarely enforced against senior executives. They have lawyers, they negotiate, they have leverage. But for everyone else, for engineers and salespeople and account managers, these clauses are time bombs built into contracts no one reads carefully enough. The companies that use these agreements most aggressively are rarely the industry leaders. They're the mid-sized firms, the companies that get acquired, the companies that restructure. They use non-competes strategically, not just to protect trade secrets, but to manage labor costs and eliminate competition for talent. This is not conspiracy. This is design. When Vertex Solutions laid off Michael, they knew exactly what his non-compete would do. They knew it would keep him out of the industry for a year. They knew it would devalue his expertise. They knew other companies would see him as legally toxic. This is called strategic separation. It's taught in business schools. It's written about in management journals. It's considered best practice. And it's completely legal because Michael wasn't discriminated against based on race or gender or disability. He wasn't retaliated against for whistleblowing. He wasn't fired for illegal reasons. He was simply part of a post-acquisition restructuring, a business decision, a line item on a spreadsheet. The law protects against injustice, but this isn't injustice. This is just how markets work. This is just efficiency. This is just the system functioning exactly as intended. If you're watching this from the United States, check your employment contract. Look for the non-compete clause. Look at the duration. Look at how competing business is defined. Ask yourself what would happen if you lost your job tomorrow. Ask yourself how long you could survive without working in your field. If you're watching from another country, research your local laws. Non-competes are enforceable in the United Kingdom, Australia, most of Europe. The restrictions vary, the enforceability varies, but the principle is the same. Your expertise can become your prison. Leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've signed a non-compete agreement. Tell me if you've ever even read yours. Because Michael Chen thought he'd read his. He thought he understood it. He thought that doing everything right would be enough. Today, Michael still works in Denver. He was promoted once. He makes $94,000 now. He flies home every 6 weeks instead of every month. Emma is 8. She doesn't remember when her father lived at home. Jennifer and Michael talk about moving the family to Denver. They talk about selling the house. They talk about starting over. They've been talking about this for 2 years. The mortgage is current now. The credit score has recovered. The bank stopped sending letters. On paper, the crisis is over. On paper, Michael survived. But survival isn't the same as recovery, and recovery isn't the same as justice. Michael never sued Vertex Solutions. He never challenged the non-compete. He couldn't afford to. And even if he could, what would he be suing for? They didn't break any laws. They didn't violate any contracts. They simply executed a standard business strategy that happened to destroy his career trajectory. This is not a story about villains. There are no villains. There's just a system that values efficiency over people. That treats expertise as corporate property. That allows companies to restrict your future as a condition of your present. And the most unsettling part is how ordinary this is. Michael was not targeted. He was not unlucky. He was simply in the wrong role at the wrong time in a company following standard procedure. This could have been anyone. This could have been you. Understanding that the rules are not designed to protect you. Understanding that compliance is not insurance. Understanding that you can do everything right and still lose everything. Michael's non-compete agreement was 12 months long, industry standard, reasonable by legal definitions, enforceable in most states. It cost him 18 months of unemployment, $60,000 in lost income, $30,000 in depleted savings, his credit score, his career momentum, his marriage's stability, his daughter's childhood. Nothing illegal happened. No one committed fraud. No one broke any laws. Michael just learned what millions of professionals learned too late, that the system doesn't need to be corrupt to be devastating. It just needs to be legal. Before you close this video, ask yourself one question. If you lost your job tomorrow, would you be allowed to use the skills you've spent years building? Or would those skills become someone else's property? Check your contract. Read the fine print. Understand what you've signed, because Michael Chen thought he understood, and he lost everything anyway. If this story made you uncomfortable, share it with someone who needs to see it. Send it to your colleagues. Send it to your friends. Because the best defense against systems like this is awareness. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful videos like this.